Namaste, everybody. Welcome to Citti Media. My name is Citti, your host. Today, we are joined by somebody very senior. He's been an academic, a scholar, a journalist, and right now he is the editor of Organizer Weekly magazine, Prafulla Ketkar ji. Prafulla ji, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Sharanji, and namaste to all the viewers. I'm really glad to join the Citti platform. Hope to have a very meaningful conversation.
Absolutely, Prafulla ji. Even I look forward to it. I have been personally inspired by a lot that you have to say. So I'm eagerly looking forward to our conversation. And on that note, if I may straight away go into introduction of our topic, it's been over 100 years, and yet our historians, our scholars, our gatekeepers of academics have conveniently forgotten what has happened to Hindus in the Moplah riots of 1921. Now, even if we were to go by some of the history that's written by people who are, say, is not widely accepted, Annie Besant's letters and the subsequent reports by the Servant Society of India says that there have been at least 1,500 murders. At least 20,000 people have been converted into Islam, forcibly converted, and thousands of people have been displaced. Their properties have been looted, their women have been raped. Now, the most unpleasant thing about India, Prafulaji, and India's history is that even after a century or so, we have conveniently forgotten this, whether it's the Moplah riots, whether it's the Noakhali riots, or even the post-poll violence where we have deniers. Why is this happening, and why is it important for our children and our future generation to remember what had happened in Moplah?
See, Sharanji, we need to understand what has been happening, especially 1916 onwards in India's intellectual discourse. I will primarily keep my focus on Moplah riots, but unless we understand the larger context, we will not understand why Moplah riots were whitewashed. 1498, Vasco da Gama arrived in Calicut, the same Kerala state where Moplah riots took place, present day Kerala state. Of course, Calicut and Kochi were, and along with Travancore, were different small kingdoms that time. But since then, the politics of Semitism or Semitic religion-based, war that was happening in Europe was brought to the Indian soil. Indian soil that was known for acceptance and respect for all ways of worships, and everybody, and even in Kerala, Christianity was existed in the form of Syrian Christians, or even Muslims were there, and there used to be a trade with the Gulf region. Even then, spices of Malabar region were famous worldwide. Yeah, and so all the people of all ways of worships were living together. But this idea of fatwas and crusades and the jihadi type mindset that was not of Indian origin, and that has never succeeded on Indian soil. Unfortunately, after Portuguese relegated to Goa and Vasco da Gama, which was subdued to some extent, was revived after Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan invaded the Malabar region. Then also, a lot of destruction took place, and many people were killed, temples were destroyed, and there are evidences to show this. I will not get into those aspects. 1836 onwards, there were attempts in Malabar region to spread this sentiment of pan-Islamism, but still they didn't get much traction. What happened in 1905 was remarkable. Bengal was divided on the religious lines by the British. And first time, the land of India was divided in the name of identity of the people. Till then, there were various kingdoms, small, models of governance. So the kings used to change, but the idea of India in terms of emotional geocultural identity from Himalayas to Indian Ocean remained the same. So the Rashtra remained the same. The state or the boundaries of governance might change. The laws of collecting taxes and the laws for ruling the governed, that might change to some extent. But this idea of India was never challenged. So land was not divided on the lines of people. Land was divided on the lines of kings, and it was only for the matter of governance. Here, first time British experimented this, and they did not succeed in continuing with that partition that time because we fought it tooth and nail. And by 1911, they had to reverse that decision. The partition of Bengal was nullified within 6 years. Entire India fought against it. And what we saw a remarkable character of India, where British had to shift their capital from Calcutta to Delhi. So they were terrified by the revolutionary movements and the kind of resistance that we did against the colonial rule. Unfortunately, after that, they started selling that you are two different nationalities, and unless you resolve this issue or you come together, Hindus and Muslims, we can't think of autonomy or what they call as that time home rule, or giving some kind of self determination or representation to you. Now this was a very dangerous proposition, because from ancient times we have been some form of governing model. We had our own knowledge systems which were destroyed by the colonial rulers. We had our own ways of managing conflicts. Somebody from outside coming and dictating this was a very dangerous ploy. 1916 post Lucknow conference, this became a sort of main agenda, and Khilafat was a major turning point. Till then, within the Congress, there was a debate, and people like Lala Lajpat Rai, Bipin Chandra Pal, they were opposing this move of taking this as the main agenda. Unfortunately, by 2020, this became the main agenda. This became a rallying point within the Congress, that unless Hindus and Muslims are together, so taking Muslims along became the main point of entire political or mobilizational exercise. Now, within the Muslim community, from 1914 onwards, there was a traction for some kind of pan-Islamism. Now, I will give you only one experience, one example of this. As I said, there were attempts earlier, but they were not successful. Indian Muslims did not have any idea about pan-Islamism or their connect with Khalifa. The Muslim Caliphate was never there, barring few leaders or mullahs or ulemas. there was no traction for this concept, because common Indian Muslims who were largely rooted in the Indian ethos did not have a direct exposure to this idea of pan-Islamism. Malabar region was exception to this. Malabar region always had this West Asia connect.
Right.
They had this, connectivity with West Asian Gulf region, what we call today. And because of that, this idea of brotherhood in the name of religion, what Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar later called, was always there.
Yes.
So the 1914, there was one important initiative that was taken from Turkey to connect Turkey with Mecca through a rail line. And as per the Islamic norms, this is a duty of a Khalifa to facilitate the commuting or the travel towards the land of Mecca and Medina.
Right.
Now, can you imagine in 1914, there was a mobilization to collect funds in India for this rail line. And people contributed to this. And there was a huge sum that was donated to this rail line, which Indian Muslims were never going to use, because it was not connecting India to Mecca or Medina. It was Europe was connecting to Mecca and Medina.
Yes.
But because Khalifa has given the call, there was a and this had a subtle traction, and therefore this idea of ulema conference and Khilafat got traction, and people, many fundamentalists within Muslim community, and there was one thought that was persisted, which is still there today. And that's why we should remember what happened in Moplah and what happened during Khilafat.
Yes.
That the British took reins from the Delhi Sultanate or Mughals or Muslims or whatever, means slash. But by and large, the Muslim kingdoms, and that's why whenever British are leaving India, they should hand it over to the Muslims.
Right.
And that idea somehow struck a chord, and many leaders within Congress had this fear that this will create a totally different kind of or nurture different kind of idea within Indian Muslims. So irrespective of religious identity, we should give them a call to join the freedom movement. Unfortunately, Khilafat became the main point. If you go through the Khilafat documents, it clearly states that the main idea behind Khilafat, they were opposing British rule, not for the freedom of India, but mainly for restoration of the idea of caliphate that was destroyed after the First World War in 1918, and especially the 1919 treaty, when this position of caliphate was destroyed. Even present-day Saudi Arabia or Makkah or Medina didn't support this idea, but Indian Muslims supported this, and that is why it is important, because this idea actually germinated into idea of Pakistan.
Right.
That led to the final partition, the actual partition that British successfully executed. And unfortunately, we didn't resist that partition, and that's why we remember we should not repeat our mistakes. And that is why the present generation should understand what happened during that period and what happened in the name of caliphate in Malabar region also, which are popularly sold either as a freedom fighters by the Congress in the post-independent period, or by the communists as the peasants' uprising. Both these things are absolutely wrong, if at all. If Moplah riots was anything, it was for restoration of Islamic Caliphate.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, those who do not learn from history are definitely bound to repeat it. Prafulla, that's a very interesting introduction and a contextual clarity you've given us. But on that note, you did mention the point of distorted history written by Marxist leftist historians, and very often than not, I mean, even in Germany, you see Holocaust deniers after nearly 70, 80 years, and in India, we do have this syndrome where certain historians are calling the anti-Hindu riots as a peaceful peasant uprising that was against quote unquote feudal Hindu landlords. How has this narrative gained any strength, and how do we tackle it?
See, this narrative is outcome of last 5 decades or so, after communists got prominence in Kerala.
Right.
In fact, they have been selling this idea of so-called peasants uprising from their early days, but it was never successful. They successfully did that only when they came to power in Kerala, and when they declared Khilafatis as freedom fighters, and they even allowed this idea because they give them status of soldiers of freedom movement.
Right.
Uh, they systematically established this narrative. But I think if you go through the recent book by Dr. B.S. Harishankar, Beyond Rampage, West Asian Context of Malabar and Khilafat, this is a very interesting book,
Right.
because first time this book actually destructs this and completely dismantle this narrative of Moplahs being poor peasants. Actually, it was a rich and very affluent and powerful mercantile community, and they had a very strong overseas trade connections with West Asia. Some of them had even the land ownership even in Mecca. So how can they be, even the leader of Caliphate, because of which this entire Moplah riot started. He was also a very rich merchant, Yaqub Hassan, and he actually became instrumental. He was secretary of this Khilafat committee in Calicut, and his arrest actually was a triggering point. And there was, of course, was one more important thing that happened during that period, which should remind us why Afghanistan holds so much of importance. I will come to that point when you discuss about Taliban and
Right.
Afghanistan, because it has some connect. But the profile of Yaqub Hassan is very interesting, because Yaqub Hassan himself was not from Calicut. He was a Khilafatist merchant and politician from Madras. There is one important book, the Khilafat movement, religious symbolism and political mobilization in India. This is a Columbia University Press publication written by Gail Minault, and she has referred many important documents of that period. If you see what the then Congress leader Govindan Nair talked about the Moplah riots, he submitted the internal report. He was a Congress committee, very important member of that period. Then what any Besant's report talks about, what Arya Samaj is, documented about the entire
Yes.
so-called Moplah rebellion. We come to know, and in even the British records, the local collector and the gazettes they have written, we come to the conclusion that what happened post 20th August, this week was very critical, because this week, 24th August 2021, they declared, this Ali Musliyar and Haji as their leaders. The Khalifa was, the position of Khalifa was restored.
Yes.
But in the process, hundreds of temples were destructed. Thousands of people were killed. The estimation is from, as you rightly said, from 1500 to 2000 to up to 10,000. And thousands of Hindus were forcefully converted, which even Mahatma Gandhi accepted later.
Right.
But this was not limited to Malabar. The idea of Khilafat, if you see nationwide, created the similar kind of sentiments. The element of violence came in the entire non-cooperation movement thanks to Khilafat.
Right.
The Ali brothers, the Chotani who was there, Abdul Bari, if you see their speeches, they were inflammatory in nature. I have just one question, who call it as the peasant struggle. Why all rich landlords and merchants were leading the entire Khilafat lot?
Right.
And two, if it was a freedom fight, then why no British were attacked? Though British properties were attacked, though British schools were destroyed, though British, as a part of symbolism, as part of the non-cooperation thing, some British goods were boycotted, but not the British rulers were attacked. Hindus were attacked. What was the mindset behind this? If you understand the context of this, I will just read out from one fatwa that was carried out in support of non-cooperation movement. Another interesting point, from Tilak's time, there was a Swaraj fund that was created. And during the non-cooperation movement, to be part of this, the small contribution was considered as a very important tool to mobilize people. So this Swaraj Fund was a very important instrument in Congress membership and being part of the larger freedom struggle. And irrespective of ideology, people participated in this.
Right.
What was the need to create a separate Khilafat fund? If there was a Swaraj Fund, and if this entire idea of Khilafat was part of the Swaraj and the freedom struggle, why there was a separate Khilafat fund? Because Khilafat fund was meant for restoration of the idea of caliphate and the idea of, and so whenever you listen to this word of Islamic caliphate, whether propounded by Ali Musliyar that time, or you listen to it when Taliban talks about it or ISIS talks about it, it has the same connotation that there will be a global Islamic kingdom ruled by one person, and Afghanistan or the region of Khorasan will have a critical role in it.
Right.
So all these things are interconnected. So whoever says that this was just a peasants revolt, it is completely wrong. Simply because the rich merchants and landlords were leading this pack of either from Aligarh or from Mumbai or from Malabar, and poor the people who actually got killed during Moplah riots were poor peasants, Hindus, and the temples were destroyed. People were forcibly converted. If Arya Samaj played a very important role, and Shuddhi movement was also started during this time. That's why some things could be restored, but still, the damage was done, and unfortunately, later it was whitewashed.
Right. Thank you so much for that elaborate answer, Prafulla ji. And you did mention about Taliban, so I was going to come to that. I mean, in brief, if I don't have to explain what is going on in Afghanistan to our viewers, everybody knows about it and everybody is in shock about the incidents. So somehow, Prafulla ji, I'm sure you'll agree with me on this, that there is a civilizational awakening in Bharat today, that everybody is seeing what we did not see for the last 100 years, what we turned a blind eye to, what kind of a danger we face from across our neighborhood. And within India, you do not have just a common man, but you have poets, you have scholars, you have Muslim leaders who are showing a wave of sympathy for the Taliban. What are your comments on this?
See, one of the important Khilafat leaders was Abdul Bari. Abdul Bari had a strong communist leanings. He was in Germany. In fact, Bari brothers were known to be the main players who brought in this Tablighi Wahhabi form of Islamism in India. And he was the one who actively played a role in endorsing a fatwa in favor of non-cooperation and Khilafat. It was published as the unanimous fatwa of the Indian ulema. Now, this is a very important document for two reasons. One, what it says, as for cooperation with Hindus, the fatwa stated, it was permissible to have political alliances and friendly relations with non-Muslims who were not hostile to Islam. Two, Muslims may even take the advice of such friendly non-Muslims, but the leadership of an infidel over Muslims is never permitted. So Gandhi is not our leader. It was very clear. Non-cooperation is not our main purpose. We are fighting against British because they are Christians and they have destroyed our caliphate. They have destroyed the position of Khalifa. And that's why the fight. Now, during this period, there is another important thing came here. And Shaukat Ali and Muhammad Ali, the Ali brothers,
Yes.
They visited Madras province just before Moplah riots, and they came up because they tried to get in touch with the Afghan Sultan that time. And he actually created this narrative. He gave an inflammatory speech, and he said the Amir of Afghanistan would come to help them in their revolt. If we start revolt all over India, Amir of Afghanistan will come to our rescue. And when it happened actually in Kerala, it started with one mosque called Tirurangadi. This mosque was searched by the British police for searching some Khilafat leaders who had given inflammatory speeches. Now the rumor on the one hand was spread that this mosque is being desecrated and destroyed. So this was the starting point. On 20th August, this was the starting point. And
Right.
soon, along with that, the idea of revolt against the British was there, but the targets were clearly Hindus.
Yes.
And at the same time, this sentiment was spread that ultimately the idea of caliphate is going to be revived from this land. And Afghanistan, the present day Afghanistan area, is going to play a key role. Now, as per the Islamic theology, this land of Khorasan, which spreads from Jammu Kashmir region to almost Iraq, plays a very important role in this entire narration, because as per the interpretation of Hadith, this land is going to play the ultimate battle, the final battle for global Islam is going to be fought in this area. And whoever is ruling this is going to be the global Khalifa. And that's why you see whether with this during the Moplah riots or present avatars of Al-Qaeda and ISIS and Taliban, you find this significance of this region. This has become a battleground throughout for the supremacy. So this is basically the Islamist supremacist idea,
right,
which is playing a critical role. And that is why that time also many scholars and poets, leaders were unashamed about it. The fake, idea of secularism that we adopted, where we assume that appeasing one community or communal sentiment is the hallmark of secularism.
right,
Promoting communal sentiments and identity on the pan-Islamic consideration at the cost of national sentiments or nationalism has become the hallmark of secularism. And that's why I said, when Congress adopted this as the main project, it became a problem, because since then we find more and more communal sentiments. Fortunately, if you see carefully, there has been a silent uprising of the civilizational ethos, where Hindus, irrespective of caste or way of worship, are saying that this is essentially a land, a geocultural identity of Sindhu Saraswati civilization,
yes,
which has a unique way of seeing relationship between human beings. For this land, the thought that always to be true and accepted from Arya Samaj, Dayanand Saraswati, Swami Vivekananda, Sri Aurobindo. Then you see the similar kind of thing during the formation of Vishwa Hindu Parishad and entire movement for Rama Janmabhoomi. That this symbolism and this idea that this is a civilizational ethos, which is really for contention. And if this fake secularism has divided our land once, now we cannot afford to do that. So everybody who is part of this land should accept that we have got a common culture, and we have to respect and accept each other's identity and way of worship. This is not just multiculturalism. This is much beyond that. This is ekam sat vipra bauddha vadanti. The truth is one, but there can be many ways to reach to that truth, and all ways should be accepted and respected. This is the fundamental thought that is behind this civilizational awakening, and that is what we need to take forward, so that any narrow-minded supremacist attitude in any sect, any religious identity is not tolerated in this land of where multiple ways to reach to the same truth was celebrated. Ours is a land of spiritual democracy, where we are allowed to choose our own way, to find our own God, and that should be celebrated. If somebody is saying my way is the only way, then that is un-Indian way. That has to be categorically told. And I'm glad that in society there are many people who are coming forward and saying this openly.
absolutely. Prafullaji, what you said in the last 3 to 4 minutes, we are going to replay that time and again, because it is so important for everybody, every one of our viewers and every Indian to listen to what you have just said, because you have systematically unearthed a lot of skeletons, and most of these facts are unknown to even students like us. We have never been taught any of this in our history. I am from Karnataka, so we have been told that it's the same parallel, Prafullaji. If you look at it, Tipu Sultan also invited foreign Islamic rulers, and it was in the guise of fighting the British. And it's the same structure, it's the same narrative everywhere. And now we can draw those parallels. And I know we've taken a lot of time for this, but let me come to my last question. We were also touching upon the involvement of Mahatma Gandhi in this. Now, Islamists clearly, those who were leading the riots, told that Gandhi is not our leader, in spite of him being the leader of the national movement, because at the end of the day, he's a kafir. And even Gandhi turned out very sadly to be an apologist, and his exact words were, Hindus are not without blame. They have not treated the Moplah as a friend. It's of no use being angry with the Moplah or the Musalman in general. Now, even today, Prafulla ji, we see a lot of ISIS recruits coming from the regions of northern Kerala, and we have still not solved the issue, have we? So, what is your closing comments on this?
See, please try and understand, when it comes to Gandhi's strategy, it was very clear. Gandhi thought that Khilafat has already a traction within the Muslim community.
Right.
And if we support that cause and against the support of the Muslim community to the idea of non-cooperation, then it will create a solid Hindu-Muslim, brotherhood, and ultimately it will help us in fighting against the British. What he missed out perhaps was that this idea of British government being Darul Harab, and this idea of Khudam Kaaba, the servants of the Mecca shrine, the another organization that was actually controlling the entire Khilafat movement.
Okay.
They were, it simply means servants of the Mecca shrine. Khudam Kaaba means. So this became a rallying point for pan-Islamism. What was, completely alien to common Indian Muslims. I'm not talking about the ulemas and the Deobandis and the major Khilafati leaders were very clear about their idea. But common Muslim was not connected to this idea of pan-Islamism till then. Unfortunately, Khilafat movement gave them the ground to connect with the pan-Islamism, and that ultimately led to even the idea of Pakistan. And that is the same sentiment that some land, if not ruled by the Muslims, where the Muslim laws are not there, where Sharia is not there. And that's why we should remember what Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar has written in his book on Pakistan and or partition of India. On page 163, he writes about these Moplah riots. Beginning with the year 1920, there occurred in that year in Malabar what is known as the Moplah Rebellion. It was the result of the agitation carried out by two Muslim organizations, the Khudam Kaaba and the Central Khilafat Committee. Agitators actually preached the doctrine that India under the British government was Darul Harb, and that the Muslim must fight against it, and if they could not, they must carry out the alternative principle of Hijrat. The Moplahs were suddenly carried off their feet by this agitation. The outbreak was essentially, though a rebellion against the British, what the aim was to establish the kingdom of Islam.
Right.
Now, if this idea is clear, then we understand why what Babasaheb Ambedkar said later in the same chapter, that the Hindus were visited by a dire fate at the hands of the Moplahs. Massacres, forcible conversions, desecration of temples, foul outrages upon women, such as ripping open pregnant women, pillage, arson, and destruction, in short, all the accompaniments of brutal and unrestrained barbarism were perpetrated freely by the Moplahs upon the Hindus until such time as troops could hurry to task of restoring order through a difficult and extensive tract of the country. Now, this is a very important conclusion that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar has drawn, and this is an eye-opener. This was happening for the formation of Islamic kingdom. That similar kind of kingdom is reappearing in the form of Taliban in Afghanistan. Uh, Afghanistan was against a very important cradle for Hindu-Buddhist civilization that
Yes.
is completely destroyed. In the earlier avatar of Taliban also, we have seen the way Bamiyan Buddha was completely destructed. So we are seeing the similar, and that's why we should be very careful. And when uh, unfortunately the Kerala government is trying to celebrate this as 100 years of Moplah rebellion, as if it was a great freedom movement, unfortunately
Right.
they are uh, again playing with the fire. They are again encouraging the same kind of sentiments where the ideas like ISIS, Al Qaeda, or Taliban will get attraction uh, within the Muslim community. And we are seeing some traits already in the Malabar region. And that's why we should revisit this entire phase, this entire chapter. In fact, there is one doctoral dissertation that has happened in Pakistan also, from Khilafat to Pakistan. It is a 4-volume book that is available. So I think we should go through each and every event and how it was executed, the idea of Pakistan. It is the lesson worth revisiting, rereading, because from 1920 to 1947, this idea was carried out and executed. We should not face the similar fate again and again. And for this, the sacred, this geoculturally very important landmass that has survived with this idea of celebrating spiritual democracy throughout the civilization. This is for restoring, retaining, re-establishing this idea that all ways are true and respected. This is the, if we really want to take this fight to this critical issue, then we must revisit and learn lessons from what happened in August 1921.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that detailed explanation of our forgotten history. And it's an absolute shame that several governments, even today in India, are celebrating such an anti-Hindu massacre. These are the enablers of pogroms, and definitely our civilization will not forget it. Prafullaji, it has been a completely enlightening session with you. Thank you so much for such a detailed discussion. And of course, we would love to have you time and again on our channel. Thank you so much, Ji. Namaste.
Thank you. Namaste. Namaste.
And to everybody watching Citti Media, we will be talking about more such issues, more such developments, because we have a huge civilizational battle against us. Please do like, share, and subscribe. This is your host, Sharan Citti, signing off.
Namaste. We hope you enjoyed this Citti Media content. Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.